1 gallon per day per person in the household. So with that scenario, a family of 4 is going to need at a minimum 28 gallons a week, 120 gallons in a month, and roughly 728 gallons for 6 months. That's a lot of water. Where are you going to store that at? You're not storing 728 gallons of water underneath your bed. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of These Homestead. My name's Derek, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most important prep items I think you can have, and that is a source of water. Somewhere where you can get water in case of an emergency. Granted, you're going to store some. We're going to have some stored down in the basement, in a closet, under a bed, wherever it is that you store your water. You're going to have some stored, but what happens when that all runs out and the emergency still hasn't ended yet? You need a source of water. So today we're going to be looking at different ways that our grandparents and great-grandparents would have prepared and found sources where they can get water. And these are going to vary depending on where you live at in the country. If you live in the desert, you probably don't have a spring-fed pond. If you live in the city, you probably don't have a spring-fed pond. There should be ponds and stuff still around in the cities. Water fountains. You could do rainwater collection off of a roof. You could set up something up on the roof where it's up away from everybody else, and you can do your own rainwater collection. If you have a balcony, you could set up your own. So there's lots of different ways that you could collect rainwater, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. And if you live in the desert, start thinking of other things you could do. There's water in a cactus, so you could cut into the cacti and break into some water. So I'm just trying to give you some ideas so you can get yourself prepared just in case there's an emergency. And it's a long-term one, and you run through your stores of water that you have. What are some things that you could do? Hey, real quick before we get too far into this, let's go over. We're coming up on the end of February, which means the contest is about done. And if you don't know what contest I'm talking about, at the end of this video, I'll have another video linked. It's on emergency wisdom. It's on books and stuff like that I think you should store up for emergency situations. So at the end of that, it goes into the details on the contest. I wanted to give a canning sausage update. If you watched that video on how to can sausage patties properly, then you might ask, what do those sausage patties taste like? Well, I opened them up the other day, and here's what I can tell you. They are still very good. Are they as good as fresh? No, it definitely changes the texture just a little bit. Nothing major. They're still very good. And in a emergency situation where you don't have fresh as an option because the stores are closed and your freezer's not working, then you know what? That canned sausage is going to work just perfect like it should. Hey, and if you're working on your emergency fund, like on video number 1 in this series brought up about doing up an emergency fund, if you're working on that this week, you should be at $180. So if you're not at $180, you need to do whatever you need to do to get to $180. Whether it be sell a kid, okay, no, I'm joking, don't sell a kid. But whether it be take on a second job, sell something that you really don't need. Like if there's something laying around your house that you haven't used in ages that you could sell to get that extra 30 bucks to get you back up to 180. What are some of the issues you could have if you drink contaminated water? And some of those could be as simple as like gastrointestinal diseases, diarrhea, nausea, stomach cramps, stomach aches and pains, dehydration, or even death. So water is definitely not something that you want to play around with. You want to make sure that you're drinking safe water. Okay, we want to talk about some natural sources where you can find water. Some of those could be right behind me right here. A pond, a stream, a lake, a river. Any of those could be places where you could find water. Now, it's going to you need to assess the water quality, and you also need to purify it. Now, here's what I can tell you. If you have running water, then that's going to be better than if it's stagnant just sitting there in a pond like that, where it's not really have a whole lot of movement or anything like that. But like a water puddle or something that doesn't have movement, definitely not going to be something good for you. But This stream actually, or this pond actually is fed by a spring. So there is some water movement, but it would still be like a last resort is what I would want to use this for. Another place that you can look at for water would be right here, your gutter. If you disconnected this gutter and put like a 55-gallon drum right here, you could easily collect rainwater right off the roof. Another thing you could do is a tarp. Like just take a long tarp, tie it up in a tree, like in some low-hanging branches, and you sort of want to make it so it's U-shaped. And we'll do this later this summer. We're not going to do it today. And then have it running down and go into like a bucket or to a barrel. And then as the rain hits that tarp, it'll just ride right down that tarp right into your bucket or your barrel, and you'll be able to collect rainwater that way. Again, though, you're going to need to purify it. So make sure you have a way to purify the water. And we're going to get into ways to purify water in a different video later on, not today. Okay, and another place that you can get water, if you live out in the country like I do, another place that you can safely get water is right there, your well. That's my well right there. This property actually has different ways to get water, but the well is one of them. And the only thing you're going to want to think on in that is in the event of an emergency situation where the power's out and stuff like that, how are you getting the water out of that well? They do make hand pumps. I might look at getting one for on here. I haven't done it yet, but it is a consideration because how am I going to get the water out of there? I need some way to power that pump to be able to get the water out, or I need to find a different solution. So that's something you need to think about. Okay, let's say you live in the city. Some of the ways in the city where you could get water would be your public water sources, public fountains, water tanks, emergency water stations, stuff like that. But at the same time, you want to be on the lookout because those are places where your bad actors could be hiding, waiting to follow you home and then steal your preps. So watch if you're getting into that situation. I think in that situation, you'd be better off to do a rainwater tarp up on your roof if you can. I think that'd be a better situation. But if you don't have that option, you could use whatever they set up as far as water stations and water tanks, stuff like that, to get your water. Stored water. So for stored water, you're going to need at least about 1 gallon a day. That's like a minimum is what they recommend. So 1 gallon per day per person in the household. So with that scenario, a family of 4 is going to need at a minimum 28 gallons a week, 120 gallons in a month, and roughly 728 gallons for 6 months. That's a lot of water. Where are you going to store that at? You're not storing 728 gallons of water underneath your bed or in the closet. So where are you going to store that at? That's why it's important for you to find emergency sources where you can go get water, because there's no way if 6 months, there's no way. How are you going to store 728 gallons in an apartment or something like that in the city, or even an apartment in a town out in the rural country, or a mobile home? Even in my house, I could probably do it down in the basement, but that'd be pretty hard. So it's going to be hard to store 728 gallons. That's why you want to start looking now for water sources so that you're not waiting until there's an emergency situation or a SHTF situation to start looking for water. You want to start looking for these sources now. And then my recommendation is when you find these sources, take a little water sample and let's get them tested. Let's see, are they going to be safe for you and your family to drink whenever something does pop off? Another place where you can look for water, and this is probably one of my favorites, and we're going to cut to some pictures of some of these here in just a little bit, but that's going to be a natural spring. Now I do have some natural springs here on my property. I'm actually walking in one of them right now. Okay, one of my favorite sources of where to find water is a natural spring. I'm actually standing right beside a natural spring that's right here by my house. So let's take a look at that. Hopefully you can see that water running, flowing down through there. One of my goals for this year is going to be to harness this source of water, put a pipe over here so that we're able to harness it. So if something was to happen, I have a source of drinking water right here. And I don't have to worry about going and hauling water from a different location. I can just get it right here. Now this right here is what you want to try and find. This is a natural spring just along the edge of the road. Here in Pennsylvania, we have these multiple different locations, but good place to just stop, get some good water to drink, and it's always nice and cold. Okay, some alternate sources of places where you can find water. If it's wintertime and you're in an area that has snow, you could melt the snow. You can also get water from vegetation, like I brought up earlier. Cactuses and stuff like that, you can get water right from there. And then also, you want to make sure that you're conserving as much water as you possibly can. So in a emergency situation where there's not a whole lot of water, you don't want to be just wasting water. So you want to use very little of it and make sure you're conserving as much as you can to help extend your water supply out. Hey, if you're into getting prepared for emergencies and stuff, or you're actually looking at everything that's going on in the country and the world right now, and you're thinking, oh, I probably should start getting prepared just in case, well, then this is a channel for you. So consider hitting that subscribe button down below, click the like, share this video with your friends and family who are also thinking about the same thing, or that you care about and you want to see them survive if something does happen. And we're going to be doing preparedness tips pretty much this whole year 2024. That's the whole goal, is to get everybody as prepared as possible for whatever happens. I don't know if anything's going to happen. I'm hoping that nothing does happen, but I want to be prepared just in case it does. And if you have any experience or insight into ways to find emergency sources of water, please share those in the comments down below, because that's the whole goal here, is to build a community where everybody's trying to help everybody out. So if you have any recommendations, any insight, like I said, later on in a future video, we're going to get into how to actually boil your water, how to make sure your water is prepared and that it's safe to drink. But this one's just about wanting you to find emergency sources of water. Like, where can I go find water at? And start prepping now. Start looking for places. And like I said, if you have something like this, like a spring or a pond or something, let's go ahead and get that water tested now and figure out, is it going to be safe to drink or is it not safe to drink? Because once an emergency happens and you can't get to this water, or you can't get this water tested anymore, now you're just going to have to roll the dice and hope that it's safe. I don't know if you want to do that for your family, but I don't for mine. So I'd rather test it now, find out it for sure if it's safe or not, and then we can go from there whenever an emergency hits. Okay, hey, I hope you liked this video. Again, click the like, hit subscribe, share this video with your friends. Have a good day, and we'll talk at you later on. Bye.